If your car broke down at 2 a.m. in the middle of nowhere, no streetlights, phone at 12%, who's the first person you'd actually call? Not who you'd want it to be, not who should be the obvious answer, just whoever actually comes to mind if anyone does. Sit with that for a second before you keep watching. Maybe a name came to mind right away, maybe it took a while, maybe honestly nothing came up at all, and that's its own kind of answer, one that's harder to sit with but just as real. I ask because I think most of us have a gap, a real gap between the people we perform closeness with and the people who'd actually show up at an inconvenient hour for no reason except that it's us. And for some of us that gap isn't small. Sometimes it feels like there's nobody on the other side of it at all. If that's you right now, I don't want to rush past that. That's not a personal failure. That's just where you are. Maybe because of things that happen to you, not because of something wrong with you. For me, that name is easy. It's my brother. I don't know if I've ever actually said this to him directly, which is kind of funny considering I'm literally recording this to say it out loud right now instead. But he's been the one constant. Not in some dramatic movie moment way, just consistently there. The person who picks up, the person who doesn't ask why, he just asks where. I think about that a lot actually. How the people who matter most rarely announce themselves with some big gesture. It's not the friend who posts the nicest birthday tribute once a year. It's the one who shows up on an ordinary Tuesday for something small without needing to be convinced. There's a version of this question that gets even harder though. If you won something huge tomorrow, something you'd worked toward for years, picture the room. Who's clapping the loudest? And if that room feels emptier than you'd like, that's worth noticing too, not as proof of anything about your worth, just as information about where you might need to build something new. And here's the part that stings a little, if you're honest, for those of you who did picture a full room. Have you been clapping that loud for them? I think a lot of us quietly keep score without realizing it. We notice who didn't text back after good news. We notice who seemed a little too quiet when we succeeded at something they hadn't. But we rarely turn that same attention inward and ask if we've been showing up the same way for the people in our corner. I saw this clip once, some guy interviewing people, and he'd ask his guest one question. Not how are you? Not the easy version. He'd ask, how do you really feel? And then he'd just stop talking. Let the silence sit there. And you could see it on their face, that flicker of panic, because most of us aren't used to being asked that and actually given room to answer it honestly. So let me ask you that. Not rhetorically, actually. How do you really feel right now? Take a second. I'm not going to fill the silence for you. I think most of us have gotten so used to the fast, easy answer, good, tired, busy, that we've forgotten what it feels like to actually sit with the real one. Maybe the real answer today is lonely. Maybe it's grateful. Maybe it's just tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Whatever it is, it's allowed to be true, even if it's inconvenient, even if nobody asked twice. Back to the car breaking down question though, because I think there's something important buried in it. For anyone who did have a name come to mind, a lot of us spend years investing in relationships based on who we think should be there for us. Family we're told we owe loyalty to just because of blood. Friends we've had the longest just because of history. And somewhere in that, we stop asking whether they'd actually show up if we needed them to. My brother never had to earn that spot by saying the right things. He earned it by literally always being there. Ordinary moments, not just crisis ones. He'd sit with me when I didn't want to talk, and somehow that quiet company said more than a conversation would have. I think that's the real definition of showing up. Not grand gestures, just presence repeated without needing praise for it. So here's what I want you to actually do after this video. If a name came to mind, message that person. Not with anything dramatic, just, hey, thank you for always being someone I know would show up. Let them know you noticed. And if no name came, I don't have some tidy solution for that. I wish I did. But maybe the first step isn't finding that person right away. Maybe it's becoming that person for someone else first, and trusting that the same kind of presence tends to find its way back to you eventually, even if it takes longer than you'd like. And maybe harder question either way. Think about whether you've been that person for someone, whether you've been the name that comes to mind when someone else's car breaks down at 2 a.m. If you're not sure, that's not a failure, that's just information. You can start being that person today. I don't think connection is about how many people you know or how full your contact list is. I think it's about how many of those names would actually pick up the phone, no explanation needed, at the worst possible hour. For me, that's my brother. It always has been. Who's it for you, if anyone? Take care. I'll see you around.